everyone. Today I'm going to show you how to make a tessellation, which to me is a lot like a puzzle in a way. But basically there are different shapes that will make a tessellation, and one of those shapes is a square. So we're going to be using a square for this, and you can print this handout that I made to use the template on. The other option, if you don't have a printer available, is you can actually use a Post-it, because the Post-it is square, so, and it's actually the exact same size. It's a 3-inch Post-it. Otherwise, you're going to need a pencil, you're going to need scissors and tape, and then some crayons for later on, and a blank sheet of paper. So here you can see I've already made a tessellation from this template here. I made this, and it fits together a lot like a puzzle does. So when you're making a tessellation, you're basically taking from one side and adding to the other. So you can see here I took from this side and attached it here, and then I cut a piece off of this side and attached it to the other side. This is one type of tessellation that you can make. There are several others as well. So when you're doing this, you want to start by cutting out the template. And you want to be very, very careful that you're cutting on the lines, because if you're missing part of this template, it's not going to work. So be very careful when you cut it out. Now, the steps are also on this handout, so when you're cutting it out, I would definitely try to keep the rest of the handout available, because you can check the directions that way. So after you have cut out your template, you're going to need to use your pencil, and you're going to need to draw a line on the A side and the B side. So you can decide if you want your line to be kind of zigzaggy or curvy. That's entirely up to you, and it doesn't have to be very complicated. It can be fairly simple. So I'm just going to kind of come up and back down for the A side, and then over here on the B side I'm going to give it kind of a curve. Now once you have those two lines, then you're going to very carefully cut them out. Make sure, it sometimes helps if you just kind of go in from both sides. That way you don't have to turn the scissors in the middle. Now as I take these pieces out, I want to be careful that I don't lose them, because I need to attach them to the other sides. Alright, so now once I have gotten both those pieces, okay, so you can see they kind of fit. So then I'm going to take it and I'm just going to slide it across. So A is going to go to A side all the way across. And you can see I made these patterns on them so you could kind of match them up. So then you're going to need a couple of pieces of tape. And you're going to line it up so that your corners match. You're going to put a piece of tape on there. You're going to do that for the A side and the B side. Now that I have the template ready, I'm going to be using this to trace. So I don't need my scissors or my tape anymore. I'm going to need my pencil now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to line it up in the corner first. So I kind of see the corners are touching. And then I'm going to very carefully hold it in place. And I'm using a pretty thin piece of paper for this, so I have to be really slow when I trace, otherwise the paper might move. If you use a thicker paper to make the template with, sometimes it's a little bit easier as a stencil. But as long as you go slow and you take your time, it should be fine. And I just gotta make sure I do all the sides. And then after I have done this first one, I'm gonna move it away. And then I'm going to slide it over, and this fits like a puzzle, so I'm going to slide it over in a position right next to it. Now I don't have room to do all of these across. I'm just using a regular piece of copy paper, so some of it is going to go off the edge after I trace this one. Now there's certain lines I don't have to retrace. For example, this part here I've already made, so I don't have to retrace that. I only had to do the front part. And then I'm going to move it again. Now you'll see some of it is off the edge, and that is okay. That happens, not a big deal. I just trace it until it gets to the edge. And then I move down a row and I do it again, just like the directions show. I go across the top and then I do the next row. So I'm going to line it up again, make sure can be kind of hard sometimes to line it up. So take your time when you're lining it up. Make sure you get all the sides right before you trace it. If it's out of position for one of these, then it's not going to fit like a puzzle by the time you're done. Now, as you go and you make your pattern with this, it might seem like the shape looks like a certain thing to you. Sometimes it might look like a fish or a bird. My one that I had in the beginning, I thought kind of looked like dragon scales. So if it looks like something to you, you can plan to turn it into what it looks like. I think this one, for whatever reason, is reminding me of a bird, a cardinal actually, because the cardinals have that kind of pointed feathers on the top of their head. So I could see myself turning these into birds. And if it doesn't look like something to you, I almost went to the wrong spot, that's okay too. We can always just color it in sort of a checkerboard pattern as well. But if it does look like something to you, you can certainly add in some features. If you think it looks like a certain animal or object, you can add to it to make it look like that thing. Kind of like the MC Escher ones, like his would turn into birds or fish. So you might see something like that in the one that you made. It just depends on what kind of lines you used in the beginning. All right, so I'm almost done here. I've got to finish this row, so I am going to go off the bottom too. There's not a whole lot from the bottom, but there will be a little bit showing. So this last row, you're only going to see just a tiny bit of it. So you're only going to see, it looks like just this little piece of it here and here. And then one more time, and then I'll be done. Just that line right there, and that finishes up my pattern. So like I said, you know, this one kind of reminded me of dragon scales a little bit, so I shaded it to look a lot like dragon scales. This one actually is kind of reminding me of a bird. So I might decide to go in and make the beak part for each of these. And then the eye. Let's see, these would be beaks over here. And then I kind of see the eye going on there, so it kind of looks like a bird. I think those will end up going off the edge there. And then I might add some feathered lines as well. Oh, I forgot a beak down here. So you can decide if you're going to turn it into something or not, or if you're just going to shade it. You know, I did this, so I did this one like every other, like a checkerboard. So I did kind of like a row of these sort of pink and orange scales, and then I did a row of these blue and green scales, and I just kind of alternated for that one. And I shaded part blue and then part green to make it sort of blend together in the middle. For this one, I'll probably make them more all the same color. So I'm just going to add some, I think, wing lines and then some tail lines to the birds. And then when you color, it helps if you actually trace your lines first. And if you want to trace them, you know, with a Sharpie, that's fine. If you want to just trace them with a crayon, that's fine too. But the idea is that they all kind of look the same. So notice I'm putting 3 lines in for each wing, and then the tail feather lines are kind of all coming out from that point. So you can decorate any way you want, and then, like I said, it helps to outline with a crayon. So if you want to pick a dark color, that's great. If you want to go with, you know, just one color to outline, that usually kind of helps sort of bring everything together. So I think, obviously, since I'm doing the cardinals, I probably just outline with red. And so I would go back and I would outline all my pencil lines with red, and then fill in from there. So I'll just show you one of these. So this is what I would do for each of them. So I would outline, kind of pressing hard with the crayon there. I might use a black marker if I wanted to grab a marker or a black crayon. I happen to have a marker here for the eye. And then choose a color for the beak. I feel like I want to do kind of lighter near the face here. And then I like to swirl when I color with a crayon so I don't get those lines when I'm coloring. And then maybe I'll start to get a little bit darker on the undersides of the bird. So I might get a little darker here on the bottoms of the wings. So see, that looks a little darker, a little lighter on the top. and then darker towards the bottom. So I'll make each of mine the same, or I could alternate and I could do blue jays. I do alternate. They have the pointed feathers on top as well, so I could alternate that way as well. So I'm just kind of shading it all in, doing my very best. 3-star coloring, and then finding a color for the beak. So then I could repeat this. So I could do a row of the cardinals here, and then I could switch it up and maybe do blue jays in between so that they look different, or I could just make them all look like cardinals. So how you turn your tessellation into something else is up to you. Just remember, use your pattern piece and copy it first, and then even if you just want to do a color pattern, that's fine, or if you want to turn it into a picture or something, that's great too. All right, I hope you have fun.